How you doing, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm your host, LSP. Today we're going to be discussing something very important. As you guys know, I only like to come on when something significant, is about to happen, and I believe that we are, very close to that significance now, and I think we're going to see something pretty dramatic over the next 2 to 3 months. Got otherwise, yeah, no worries, Adders. How you doing, Bill? Yeah, we're all good, man. Yeah, all good, all good. So, US dollar, right? I've been discussing this for quite some time, over a year and a half, actually. I'd even go as far back as 2 years, but I wasn't as vocal about the US dollar collapsing. But just to give you guys, a quick rundown. On my YouTube channel about a year ago, I posted this video, US dollar headed for lower prices, right? And this was at a time where the US dollar, was doing really well. It was in good shape. I haven't watched this video for some time, but I remember the content of this video. The US dollar is going to be, the US dollar is going to crash maybe. I felt very strongly at the time that the US dollar was about to, not about to, but at least going to crash. And just as a quick side note as well, before I get into all of this, the reason you can't see me is because it's like the Garden of Eden in here. The sun is blaring through the window. I literally can't see a thing. So when I have myself on screen, just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. This is what happens. You can see, this is kind of glare coming in, and even when I get rid of the glare, it's still pretty bad. It's not too bad. I mean, I suppose we can get away with that. So yeah, look, this is a problem, guys. Right? This is a big problem. Like I said, I've been talking about this for some time, and the thing about me is I'm very good at looking like far ahead. Do you know what I mean? And kind of connecting the dots going forward, which isn't easy to do. A lot of it's based on experience and having gone through these kind of cycles myself. But for me, the US dollar was always going to, get to a point where what we're seeing now was going to happen. So if anybody's interested in watching this video, it was a year ago. If I find some time, I'll probably forget, I'll try and link it, in the description below. But again, I'll probably forget. If you just type in US dollar headed for lower prices, in the search for the channel, which is up here, it will come up. So definitely worth looking into this. If we just go over to the US dollar, look at the monthly chart of the US dollar, right? It's peaked about 114. For anybody that was paying any attention, obviously I discussed all of this. Many people in the Patreon, I've got a Patreon channel on Discord. If you're not in Patreon, you won't see it because you need the Patreon role. And that's not a plug for Patreon. I just want to illustrate something. The discussion that I was having last year and the year before about price running into these levels, I literally called this entire move, and I called this move lower, and I'm calling this now, right? We are 100% going to see $100 on the US dollar, right? And the more the US dollar gets pounded, the tougher this is going to be, in terms of global trade. The harder it's going to be for the US to basically, impose trade sanctions, the harder it's going to be for the US to be able to, maintain that dominance when it comes to their, reserve currency, or the dollar in this case. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And as money flows out of the US dollar, it's going to start to go elsewhere. The one thing that we need to remember about money flowing, right, is large money will always try to find more money. It's not a question of, I've got to stop with the clickbait titles, giving me a heart attack. I know. What can I say, man? I just, I'm trying some new stuff. I've been looking at a lot of different things. And to be fair, I saw an uptick of about 13-14%, on my channel, because of the thumbnails and some of the titles. And I hate clickbaity titles, but it's just unfortunate, man. That's what YouTube calls for, right? But the challenge that we face right now is, as that money flows out of the US dollar, large money needs to make money, period, right? And they're not, like for them, it's not a question of just, okay, well, we'll pull the money and we'll just keep it in cash reserves. It's money, if money's sat stagnant, it's not making money, right? And because of that, because the sound is 2x, lots of echo. Oh, that's interesting. Is it echoey? That's weird. It shouldn't be echoey. I'm not playing it anywhere else. Yeah, no, very strange. Very, very strange. Maybe I'll talk a little bit lower. Sorry, I haven't changed anything, so there shouldn't be any echoes. Is the sound all right for you guys? Free Gender, what's going on? Finally made it to one of your lives. Sweet. Shane, how you doing? Dylan, what's going on? Kovic is saying no, not before 120 in DXY. DXY will not see 120. Not a chance. DXY can't go lower because of Euro, going to crash soon, which will send a 120, 125. Don't short DXY at this moment. You're going to get burned. Yeah, no, listen, I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I want to be absolutely really clear about this. Yeah, okay, Dylan, nice one. I want to be really, really clear about this. Yeah, my intention is not to tell anybody or to fear anybody. Like, you guys know me by now. That's not what I'm about. I just don't believe and cannot see how, you know, the US dollar is going to see 125 because it's not dependent on what Euro does. Yeah, remember, Euro isn't the world's reserve currency. The dollar is. It's in the basket of reserve currencies, but it's not the world reserve currency. So if we go over to the actual Euro, so we see the Euro like this, the Euro is showing absolutely no signs whatsoever, right, that it's going to run lower at all, right? And if anything, we've already peaked down here. So you see this huge drop, right, and this reversal. The only way that this reverses is if there's a cataclysmic event that happens within Europe. And you may say, well, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, some of these banking, you know, the banking crisis and some of the problems. But you've got to remember, the US dollar is what is in most of these banks. Most of these banks are holding US dollars in reserves. Most of these banks, and this is Europe-wide, East, West, pretty much every single bank of significance in the world is holding US dollars. And because it's holding US dollars in its reserves, and because they buy treasury bonds, and because they do business in the dollar, okay, the dollar collapsing or the dollar going down will be worse and unlikely for any of those currencies, the euro, the pound, you know, the Swiss franc. The Norwegian kroner will do very well. I believe the Norwegian kroner is going to, or however you, or whatever it's called, is going to be very, very strong, right? The Swiss franc, I did believe the Swiss franc was going to be strong, but I don't think it is. I think the effect or the ripple or the systemic effect, right, of the US dollar, because it is literally like glue that is everywhere. It's like somebody's got a glue gun and just scattered the US dollar all over the place, you know, and it's very difficult to get rid of that taint. It's like a dye, right? That's basically stained across the whole of the world. So because of that, and because each of these banks that may go under, so let's say, you know, Credit Suisse, for example, or Deutsche Bank, you know, or some of these, you know, some of these other banks in Europe, because they are holding US dollars, and a lot of them, the US dollar goes down, the value of those holdings goes down. If the value of those holdings goes down, then they need to start to do something with that. Maybe they, you know, they swap it for another currency. Maybe they start to do business in a different currency altogether. And as that happens, the dollar continues to weaken. It's very unlikely that any one of those currencies is also going to go down as well. I can't see it. I just can't see it. I mean, if we go over here, and I'll get back to the questions in a second, but this is, you know, Watcher Guru, right? You know, you've got, just to give you a quick example. So this is a recap, right? You've got, this was last week's recap, right? You've got Saudi Arabia enters trade alliance with China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and 4 Central Asian nations to step away from the reliance on the dollar. China and France complete the first natural gas trade using Chinese yuan, ending reliance on US dollar for energy trades. You've got China and Brazil to settle trades in their own currencies, ditching the US dollar. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS, are developing a new currency, State Duma Deputy Chairman says. Saudi Arabia partners with China, you know, for their oil refineries. Kenya says deal with Saudi Arabia and UAE to buy oil with Kenyan shillings instead of US dollar. President of Kenya tells citizens to get rid of the US dollar. That was a little thing that he said. There's a short clip about this. Association of Southeast Asian Nations considers dropping the US dollar, euro, yen, and British pound for local currency financial settlements. El Salvador signs the bill for taxes, whatever else, blah, 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 blah. India to settle trade in India rupees. And I know a lot, because I've had a lot of conversations about this. People keep saying to me, yeah, but, you know, they don't make up a large portion, this, that, the other. Well, just let them keep, you know, let them carry on like this. And it's not about, this is really important, guys. It isn't about just saying, okay, we're no longer going to do business in the US dollar. You know, we're going to use our own currency. That's not the real heart of this problem. The challenge comes in, right, when you start to hear things like, let me just find it. It's a little bit further up. When we start to hear things like this, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince MBS says he is no longer interested in pleasing the US. This is something that we're starting to see a lot of, right? People are losing respect for the US economy, and they're starting to push a little bit back, right? So instead of the US basically being in a position where they can say, okay, well, if you don't play ball, we're going to do this, this, and this. Excuse me, countries are now saying, do whatever you want because I don't really care. That's a problem for me. That's a big problem. And it's very unlikely, right? Excuse me, that it's very unlikely, that's going to slow down anytime soon. There seems to be this huge ramp up now of a lot of these countries saying, yeah, we don't really want to do business with the US. We're not interested in pleasing the US. We're not interested in making sure that the US is basically, happy or not. We don't care. We want to have our own economies. We want to have control over what's going on. And remember, the US dollar gives the US power to control economies. They did it back in the 70s with Tokyo. They've done it in Venezuela. They've done it in quite a few countries, to be honest. It's almost like economic hits, to be fair. And not to go into the history of all of this stuff, I'm just trying to really emphasize how much the US dollar and the US is dependent on that dollar. They're so dependent on that dollar being used around the world. So this is going to be an issue. So what were you saying here? No, okay, that's fine. No, okay, it's fine. Yeah, but 58% of DXY index is euro. When everybody calling dollar crashing, it's time to go long, big time. Yeah, to be honest, I don't think everybody is calling it. I'm the only one that is, to be honest. I haven't seen anybody else call this. I'm not saying I'm the only person on the planet. I'm just saying, me personally, I've been talking about this for quite some time. I do believe the dollar is going to end up down at $80 at some point. And to be fair, it really wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't sit here and be surprised if I found out tomorrow, for example, that the dollar crashed, the euro crashed, the pound crashed, and all of these major currencies basically took a downturn. That would not surprise me in the slightest, because remember, I've been trading Forex for a very, very long time, right? And I've seen the US dollar index decouple completely from the euro. I've seen the euro decouple completely from the pound. And I've seen chaos in the Forex market to the point where it's like there's literally no consistency whatsoever. I've seen the euro go up and I've seen the dollar go up. Yeah, I've seen the euro go down. I've seen the dollar go down. I've seen the pound and the euro both going down together and both going up together. I've seen the pound going up and I've seen the euro going down and I've seen the dollar going down, while the pound's going. It makes no sense. So there are conditions or certain economic conditions that happen where money needs to be moved a certain way, or it needs to be used to purchase certain, commodities. Money needs to be used a certain way to basically, for example, euro needs to be swapped to dollars, or those countries that do business with China need to swap their local currency into dollars so they can do business with, China in dollars. Now they can't do that anymore. Or at least they can, but they need to change their local currencies into the yuan. So they basically continue to do business. Now, I know the euro, the pound, and the Swiss franc, for example, some of these bigger players, they are strong currencies in their own right. But ultimately, what I'm saying is, for me to come on here and say absolutely 1000% the dollar is going to crash and there's no deviation is irresponsible, just like Zlatko or Kovic basically saying, the dollar's absolutely 100% going to go to 120, 125. Like, we can debate this, but we will never 100% know. But I will put my name on this and say the dollar is going to see $100. Yeah, 100%. And I believe I'd even go as far as to say this is 99.9% sure the dollar will hit $100 before it hits 125, if it ever hits 120, 125. Yeah, I personally do not believe that's going to happen. But again, I will stick by my analysis. The one thing about me is I will not deviate from my analysis ever. Yeah, if I see something and I do the checks and I go through everything that I'm seeing, I will not deviate from my analysis in any way, shape, or form. I just won't. But I'm always happy and open to listen to anybody's opinion. Absolutely. And these kind of lives or these open discussions about what I feel, and then kind of giving you guys a voice to to say what you guys excuse me, giving you guys a voice to say what you think. That's the whole point of having these open discussions, to try to figure out whether what we're seeing is right, whether it's wrong, what we can do about that. And ultimately, I think we can all agree on this, inevitably, the end result will always be some people will make money, some people will lose money. Some people are going to make a lot of money and some people are going to get absolutely crushed. So, I advise caution. I've always advised caution. But again, this isn't about the price of the dollar. This is the effect that it has worldwide. and the more that we see Eastern European countries, Eastern Asian countries, really making a stand and being vocal about moving away from the US dollar, the more this is going to, get worse and worse and worse, in my opinion. Everybody calling. So what is something, excuse me, so what is something the dollar could do to recover, or is it years of effery finally come into effect? I think there's two schools of thought. I personally, and this may be a bit tinfoil hatty, but I believe that the US is deliberately destroying the dollar, right? And I think they're forcing the dependence on the dollar away from the US. I'm not going to go into the reasons because the video is just basically going to get removed from YouTube. But this is my belief. There is also the thinking that the US dollar is starting to feel the pressure of years and years and decades, right, of abuse, right? So inevitably, if anybody has done any history on, sort of world reserve currencies, they last about 100 years before they ultimately basically just collapse or go to crap, and then eventually something else comes in and there'll be another currency that basically takes over, right? And it's a very interesting, the relationship between, world reserve currencies, economies around the world, interest rates. It's a very interesting study, very, very interesting study, and definitely worth, sort of going into. There's a lot of great information out there about all of this stuff, and definitely worth digging a little bit deeper. But to go back to what you were saying, Shane, it is. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but the past 2 or 3 decades, right, of the US dollar, the way that the US conducts itself, especially in the last 2-3 years, like, we have to be honest, and we can't just I speak to Americans. I've got some really, really good American friends, that tell me they're disgusted with the way that their US, Congress, politicians, is behaving or are behaving to the point where I've never heard anybody say they're not proud to be an American. Absolutely not. They love their country. They're very patriotic, but they're concerned. They're concerned because their country is basically becoming bastardized. Yeah. And for me, it's like, okay, I can see all of this stuff happening, but how do I take advantage of this? Where do I put my money? Do I move my money? Should I be thinking about investing in, overseas? Should I be thinking about potentially moving money over to crypto? What does that look like? If money's coming out of the US dollar, it's got to go somewhere. It's not going into the stock market. The stock market's going up on thin air. The stock market will crash. I've already made a call on this, right? In terms of the S&P, I don't know how long it's going to take, but the S&P is going to be sub 3,000. And if the S&P is sub 3,000, that's in my mind, a cataclysmic crash, which is going to affect global economies. It's going to knock off a huge amount in terms of wealth, of individuals. It's going to destroy companies, and the aftermath of that will be the same as we've always seen. There'll be companies that weather the storm. There'll be companies that rise through the ashes, and there'll be companies that get absolutely, decimated. And then the kind of cycle starts again. But I keep saying this, it is different this time. It's different this time because we have cryptocurrency. We've got a cryptocurrency market. Everything is different now. We never had a cryptocurrency market back in 2007 to 2009, right? So because there is an extra market for people to put their money into, this is why we're starting to see an uptick, right, in cryptocurrencies. So if we go over to, for example, Bitcoin, we know Bitcoin's been kind of hovering around about 28,000 or so, seems to be doing all right. And I do believe this is the monthly. Let's go over to the weekly. I do believe we get that secondary pop. I've been calling for 30,000 to 32,000 for quite some time. And as always, the analysis that I do is objective. I'm not interested in being right. I'm interested in seeing it for what it is. So obviously, I don't believe it's over. I do believe that we are going to get a secondary move to the downside, whatever that looks like. I don't know, just yet. Just like I was calling 300 on BNB recently, in the last video that I did, saying it was on the edge of the cliff. He's literally hit 300 and then bounced from there. Like I'm trying to, how can I say? I'm trying to, to at least defend my analysis, right, and show you that if you're paying attention, for those that are in the Discord, you'll know this. I make calls only when I am absolutely sure, that what's going to happen, or at least what I think is going to happen, happens. So, it's not just some haphazard analysis that I do. I really break this stuff down. I don't do it, openly or live, because I'd never stop talking. There's a lot of stuff I keep a track of. There's many articles that I read. I get a lot of information online. I get a lot of information from people that I trust personally. We're not in good shape. We're not in good shape, but we have a cryptocurrency market. We never had this before. And because of that, money will flow into cryptocurrency. This is what we're seeing. The banking crisis started. If you notice, things have settled a little bit. We're not really hearing much, right? All we're hearing is what? Binance getting attacked, crypto getting attacked, regulation, crypto, Binance, CZ, Binance, crypto. That's what we're hearing. The attention is being shifted and diverted towards cryptocurrency, as opposed to where the real problem is, the banking sector, right, across the globe. And what's going to happen is a lot of these regulatory compliances or legislation changes, they're going to happen in the dark. They're going to happen quietly. People aren't paying attention. So when you're paying attention, you start to notice the subtle differences. And because we have this cryptocurrency market now, you see the uptick. People are a lot smarter. I've said this so many times. People are a lot smarter now than they've ever been. Back in 2007 to 2009, it was the first real, kick in the face. People really had to grow up, you know what I mean, and stop spending money, mindlessly like zombies. Whereas now it's like, okay, I'm going to be a bit cautious and a bit patient, and I'm going to take my time. I'm going to put a little bit of money aside. And then what happens? COVID came, and all of that money that people have saved, lockdowns, forcing people to work at home, forcing people that couldn't work at home to stay at home, and so on. They started to dip into their savings. So it's very calculated, very, very clever, very smart. And what you'll see is, and what you'll find, a lot of people that had money don't have it anymore. A lot of people that made the conscious choice to shift the way that they're protecting their assets, okay, have also been hit. So where is the money flowing from? Yeah, massive institutions, big players, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Vanguard, so on. All of these big players are the ones that are being protected, especially when all of this banking crisis crap started. They were protected 100%, and then ultimately we are seeing a collapse of the dollar. And when I say collapse, I am talking about a broader holistic collapse. I'm not talking about we're seeing a collapse right now and the dollar's just going to shoot to the downside. I've never made that claim. I'm saying holistically, over a longer period of time, which started 3 years ago, 2017, actually, if we're going to get technical, the collapse of the dollar started all the way back then, about 5-6 years ago, and it's slowly starting to ramp up, just ready for CBDCs, just ready for Fed now, just ready for, broader broader changes in the way, banks communicate with each other, global system being put in place. I mean, come on, you've got to be asleep or on sleeping pills, right, to not see what's actually happening in the marketplace, right? So again, just some thoughts, right? Just some thoughts from me. So let's take a look here. Let's get back to the questions. And I'm just going to, okay. So all the time, all-time high DXY by October. Okay. Definitely something to bear in mind. Kovic. Nothing wrong with your analysis, but black swan event going to happen in Europe, something in Ukraine, which will send DXY to 120, 125, possibly. And again, you see, I'm always open to looking into these things. I don't, the 80 call on the dollar, for me anyway, at least, isn't an absolute, but $100 for me is. I firmly believe that the dollar is going to hit $100, and I like to do. How's the best way to say this? I like to do rolling analysis. Yeah. So we do objective rolling analysis. We wait for that moment. Okay, now I'm happy. I'm confident, right? So I'll make the call. And then that happens, and then we have to readjust. What's the dollar doing? Did it pick up buy side liquidity? What's the COT data saying? Commitment of traders, for those that don't know what that is. Commercials, non-commercials. Where is the money flowing? So on and so on and so on. We do the whole cycle all over again, and then another call comes, right? So it is rolling analysis. It's not just a be all and end all. Markets are dynamic. Markets are fluid. Money is always moving. What if this is just the aftermath of the pandemic? Could possibly be. I don't believe it is, but it could be. The only way I see USD survival is complete capitulation into blockchain and controlling global platforms. I agree. 100% D's. I live in the US and I agree. Also, does this mean that the stock market will go down as the dollar goes down? If you can't answer, I understand. Well, generally, when the stock market is going up, the dollar is going down and vice versa, right? Because if the stock market is going down, money's being taken out of the stock market and it's put into, something safer like the US dollar or potentially gold, some of the safe havens. But if the dollar is getting destroyed, due to inflationary changes, due to interest rates. So if the interest rates are basically starting to slow down now, and maybe there's a rate, a rate announcement where they either stop increasing rates or stop doing rate hikes, and instead drop 25 basis points or drop 50 basis points, But when that happens, it makes the US dollar less favorable. But then on top of that, you also have to take into consideration that they are pumping $2 trillion into the US economy as well. This is another problem, right? So you look throughout history and you're like, okay, wait a second, when has this ever happened before, right? And when have we ever had the perfect storm to basically cause systemic collapse of all financial economies around the world? Think about what I've just said. When have we ever had the perfect storm, right, to literally cause a systemic crash globally? Yeah. I mean, I think it's an important question to ask, And again, it's not doomsday. It's about prepping. It's about preparation. It's about being ready. It's about putting yourself in a position where you're like, okay, do you know what? I'm not just going to mindlessly buy Doge just because the Twitter logo changed. You know what I mean? Think. We're going to be, we're going to be cautious. We're going to be careful. We're going to make sure that we're positioning ourselves, so we come out of the other side with our funds intact and maybe better off. You know what I mean? Instead of I took a gamble, I plowed it in, and now I just got decimated and there's literally nothing I can do other than to just accept what the government gives me, And this is the only short-term effect of a global pandemic. Yep. Everything you said is correct. Even I agree, but market is rigged 100%. Billion% the market is rigged. That is why they will pull the rug under the market, send the XY to stratosphere, unfortunately. Yeah. And again, this is always something, that we have to take into consideration and consider. Not that it will happen, but why would that happen? Yeah. If they shot the dollar up as fast as that, it would literally stop everything that these Eastern countries are doing right now. This, dependence on the dollar and so on. That would be one way to basically put that to bed and say, that's fine. You guys carry on, do whatever you're going to do. Boom, dollar goes, rips to the upside, and it literally decimates some of these Eastern countries, in terms of their economies, their reserves, takes money out of their coffers and so on. So yeah, there is an absolute valid point, that you're making there, Kobe. But again, rolling analysis. Yeah, for me, it's rolling analysis. I want to make sure that I'm keeping the analysis prediction open. Yeah. Apologies for the curse word. Should have found a better word, but it fit. I'll be silly, man. I'm quick to read it, in a way that the recommendation system doesn't pick it up. It does like the BTC is overall. Sorry, it does look like BTC is overvalued at the moment, or the blue chips undervalued. Well, I think with BTC or Bitcoin, I think what's happening there is there's going to be, if you guys notice, right, there's this kind of, this hype comes back into the market, the FOMO comes back into the market, and then they say stupid stuff like, or at least they start to release little snippets of information. Oh, the US dollar is holding hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. Oh, Mount Gox, that's going to get released soon. Oh, this, oh, that. And then people are like, ooh, maybe. So you have your hardliners that are just like, do you know what? We don't care what you throw at us. We're just going to keep buying and buying and buying Bitcoin, right? But then you've got other people that are like, yeah, well, maybe this is a problem, right? But no, we take it at face value to start with until we start to see the effects of these so-called hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin that the US government is holding. But it is a problem. It's something that we have to take into consideration, because think about it like this. If you have the ability to be able to move your money into something like Bitcoin, where it is a safe haven, it's a store of value, and it is a protection against what's happening, wouldn't it make sense for the US, who control a lot of the global economies and hate crypto, to crash Bitcoin, to position themselves in a spot, right, where they can actually crash Bitcoin and send it screaming back down to 10K, for example, and all of those people that are plowing into Bitcoin, and it's going up and everything looks rosy, wouldn't it make sense? Okay, now let's hit them, bang, and then it just drops. These are the things that I think about, not because I want to be a pessimist and not because I want to be a kind of doomsdayer or anything else. It's because I like to put as many scenarios in place as I possibly can so I'm not taken by surprise. This is the most important thing, because we may not control what happens, but if we've planned out 20, 30, 40, 50 different scenarios as best we can, when they happen, it's like, yeah, I was expecting this. You know what I mean? Then you can react straight away without even thinking. It's like, I'm going to buy now with confidence. Do you know how hard it is, guys, to buy? Just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, right? Do you have any idea? And I'm sure some of you do, but the majority of you probably don't, right? What it would be like to buy when that's happening. And bearing in mind, let's say you wake up tomorrow and you see that, yeah, boom, big, strong move like that. It's like, wow. Are you buying or are you panic selling? Yeah. But if you plan out that scenario and you're like, I expected it, 11,655. The second Bitcoin hits 11,655, assuming it does, if this happens, I have spoken about this so much, right, that my fingers know exactly where to hit the phone while I'm sleeping. You know what I mean? To buy the first initial bulk of what I'm looking to buy on Bitcoin. Immediately, bang, straight away, because I'm expecting this. You know, if it goes up, I know exactly what I'm expecting on the upside. Plan. That's what it's about. It's about planning your scenarios and really making an effort to make sure that you are prepared. So when the time does come, you know how to react without emotion, without panic, without fear, etc. Right? Deez is saying, I keep forgetting I can throw this up on the screen. I often compare the current state of crypto to the .com bust, 2K. The same corporations that made billions telling people to sell, then made billions, are doing the same to the cryptocurrency market. Absolutely, 1,000%, mate. So true. That is after the mortgage issues that happened in the US, correct? Not that was comical, but someone made some money. Yeah, I mean, listen, this is why I like Elon, because he's a nut. I love stuff like that. Are you making any moves to switch over to? Sorry, are you making any moves to switch over to Rumble? Sorry that the question is kind of off. Rumble as in the platform? Probably not. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I said in one of the lives recently, right, that I've noticed, it's very, very strange, right? But I've noticed that, YouTube is making an effort, which is very odd, to allow people to express themselves a little bit more freely. I mean, I've watched videos and I'm like, wow, why is this still online? 2 years ago, they would immediately taken this down straight away. So I like that. I like that there's a little bit more freedom, on YouTube. I think they're making an effort, to kind of give people a little bit more freedom in what they say. And they're focused more on preventing the monetization of videos, as opposed to, they're making more efforts, to allow people or disallow the monetization of videos. So it's basically like you can say whatever you want, but unfortunately, you're not going to be able to, to monetize your video. That they've focused a lot on that, and they've changed some things in that respect, but being able to come on and talk about a lot of different things, for some reason, it seems to be okay. But Rumble, you can do whatever you want on Rumble. Maybe, I mean, if it ever got to the point where I would need to go over there, I would, but I'm hoping I never have to, because I've always tried to remain sort of, in the middle. I like to respect everybody's opinion. I've got absolutely no issues with, talking about anything, and I think if we all do it respectfully, then I think we're in good shape. If BTC hits your target, will you DCA similar to how you're currently with the experiment account? No, Reese. So with the experiment, well, I said that wrong. Let me start again. So, for those that don't know, I'm doing an experiment, right? And what Reese is asking here is am I going to treat the way that I invest with my personal money, what I'm looking to happen in the market outside of this experiment? Am I going to do it the same way that I'm going to do with this experiment? Yes. So I'm going to use the same logic. I'm going to be using the same patience. I'm going to be waiting for key elements and key points, and so on and so on. But what I'm investing in is going to be different, and the amounts obviously are going to be different. But the way I aggressively invest personally is going to be different to the way that I'm showing through the experiment, because the experiment is a social experiment to show how investing can be simple, direct, and practical without the need for emotions and craziness and just continually buying. It's just about relaxed, calm investing, right? So there are some differences there, yeah. So all in all, to kind of wrap up, we are currently going through some very interesting times, and I think it's important that we try to stay on top of what we're doing, and try to position ourselves in a way where we're trying to at least be ready, prepared to act accordingly, and to allow ourselves to be a little bit conspiratorial in nature, to have a little bit of paranoia, to have a little bit of, I think that's important, because when you're like that, it doesn't mean you're crazy. It means that you're paying attention. It means you're paying attention. The Discord that we have, the Invested Intelligence Discord, the link's in the description if anybody's not in that, right? We try as a community to take, to stay on top of things that we believe to be important for current market conditions, right? And we've got some amazing people in there. Dee's really smart, Lobo, very smart. In fact, you all are. Like everybody that's in that Discord, Serge, so on. Donnie. We're all trying our best to give relevant information, right? So we're prepared. The more information that we take in, the more headlines that we read, the more we dissect everything that's happening in the marketplace, the easier it is for us to discuss it and then find a point that makes sense, instead of just saying, well, and if I just go over to crypto news and I'll just do a quick refresh, the first straight away, Fortune drops, second event, no, whatever. Here we go. Yeah, so Binance CZ, Jimmy Butler, other crypto influencers face new $1 billion lawsuit from 2 law firms, right? You read that and you're like, oh my God. And immediately you're like, oh, so you're checking your Binance and stuff. No, break it down, go into it, try to figure it out. What CZ is saying immediately. And this is my point. When you read an article like this, straight away, the first thing that I'm looking to do is just immediately go to CZ. What's he saying? And I look at what he's saying. Okay, fine. I cross-reference that with what is being said. This Interpol, the red Interpol notice that was apparently, thrown out there, in terms of there's a red notice out for CZ. For those that don't know what an Interpol red notice is, it means there's a warrant out for his arrest, basically, anywhere in the world, and once they get him there, he'll be extradited to whatever country he needs to be in, blah, 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 blah. That's a big deal, right? That's huge. But can we verify that? We don't know anybody that, I don't know anybody that works at Interpol. Maybe you guys do. I don't know. But verifying that sort of information is very difficult. So you have to wait. You've got to be patient. Is the market reacting? Yes or no? No. Okay. What's CZ saying? He's saying this. Okay, fine. What's the article saying? Who stands to benefit and who stands to lose? And so on. We break all of these things down. We try and figure them out. We throw them in the Discord. And we're like, okay, let's all relax. Yeah, there's probably not an Interpol red notice, out there for his arrest, right? So with all of that said, I'm going to quickly check the comments. Let me see. Let me get rid of this one. So yeah, looks like we're good. 37 minutes. I think that's a great session, to be honest. Very happy with that. Straight into the info, answered all the questions. Obviously, mainly, the dollar monthly looks, man, this is the start of the month, guys. Remember, and I'll leave you with this. This is the start of the month. Macy, we're gonna hit 100, man. Trust me. I'm gonna leave it at that. So let me just quickly check. I forgot to mention crypto keyboard warrior joke. I just got no worries, Ryan. Sweet. Perfect. No worries, man. You're very welcome, guys. Anytime I see something that's important, I'm going to be on here and I'm going to be rambling about it. So I wish everybody an absolutely fantastic day. I'm going to be around in all the usual places, Discord, Twitter, etc. Anybody needs me, let me know. I've got my phone with me. I'm going to be out this evening. But as always, if I didn't tell you that, you'd think I was in front of my computer the way that I respond. So yeah, I hope everyone has an awesome day. And we'll catch up very, very soon. Take care, guys. Ciao, ciao.